And, and we don't have a set of minutes yet from just from the April 13th. But any changes or corrections to anything in those minutes? If not, we'll approve them as submitted. Next thing is the report of the town manager, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Black, members of council. I just want to make you aware of a few things tonight, one of which is Bedford is going to be getting something of a local transit system, and it's being led by the Bedford Community Health Foundation. It's going to be known as the Otter Bus, and our only cost and contribution will be signage for the stops, but that's a pretty exciting development that I don't know if many of you are aware of or are public, so I wanted to make that known tonight, and we'll be excited to follow that as it moves forward. Also, the police department held a drug take-back day on Saturday, and they collected 35 pounds of prescription drugs, which is a good service without necessarily commenting on the level of drugs that were returned. And also tonight, I wanted to kind of update you all. You've received some information about the situation involving collective bargaining in Virginia, and I just wanted to clarify that for your purposes. The General Assembly recently removed the prohibition on collective bargaining for public employees, but that does not necessarily mean that employees can unionize. In fact, localities can authorize collective bargaining, but they are not compelled to do so. And we have consulted with Jeremy Carroll, who handles a lot of our personnel law, and he advises that unless you wish to enter into that kind of situation here, you don't have to take any action at this point to prevent it. Now, without making any political statement whatsoever, that's subject to change depending on what the General Assembly does. But as of now, unless you choose to allow collective bargaining here, and I've received no direction to do that, we need to take no action. So that concludes my report. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Any questions so far? No. Okay. Do we have any appearances before council? No appearances before council. Anybody wish to speak during the public comment period on anything? No? Okay. Council comments? You're in this evening.
Okay, well, last meeting we got some great things done, and guess what? Great things are coming down the pike.
Anybody else? All right. I don't think, was there any council committees? No committees met. All right. Revisions to the agenda. I do want to add a closed session for personnel at the end. All right. So right now, we'll move into the old business, which is dealing with the resolution to permit a private utility solar panels by conditional use permit by Old Yellow LLC. The last meeting that was tabled, so the first thing we got to do is get that back on the table. So we would need a motion to bring that back to the table, a second, and a vote on that.
I make a motion that we bring that back off the table.
That's right. Is there a second? Second. All right. Roll call.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, so I know, do we want to get a motion on the table just before we discuss?
I'll make a motion that we approve the, I don't have a code to read, approve the solar panels at the Old Yellow School here in Bedford with Waco. What's the name of it?
It's actually Old Yellow LLC
Yeah,
making
yeah.
that question.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. I know Bart had written a memo and pointed out some things and gotten some more information. Bart, do you have anything you would like to share on?
Actually, based on the action, I spoke with Mr. McCormick, who's the principal of Old Yellow LLC, and is willing to grant any assurance you need about visibility, particularly from Westview. Given the parapet of the wall in the roof, he says it will not be visible from Westview. It's highly unlikely it'll be visible from the rear of the property. With regard to glare, his point is that he does not intend for there to be any. Ultimately, this will be reviewed by the Department of Historic Resources, and he needs an answer from us so he knows which set of plans to submit. So if we approve it, they're going to have to review it under their standards, which are published and easily referenced by them. So just, even if you were to approve this, does not necessarily mean it's going to happen. I guess that's the short point there. Even if you decide that it's not a good idea, that won't necessarily deter Mr. McCormick. He just needs an answer so he knows which set of plans to submit.
I'll make the argument that the Department of Historic Resources is probably more stringent than any of us can be on revitalization of those buildings. And I would support whatever he's got to do to do it.
Any other comment, Bruce?
Okay, now, once we take a vote on this, he's not going to come up with anything else to try and kick the can down the road, because I can't tell you how often I get asked by people, what's going on with the middle school project?
And the answer is he's waiting on us at this point.
At this point. I mean, I was one that, wanted to ask the question about the, the glare and the view, and I think like I said, I've gotten comfortable with that, and don't see that being an issue now, so I'm okay with it.
Call for the question.
All right, any other comments or anything? Not, roll call.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, back into continuing our budget discussions. I think we made some good progress last Saturday, because we didn't get through kind of all the topics. So, I know Sonia had given us a couple items, the pluses and minuses of what we had changed. That was just, real quick, that was just in the operating of the general fund. That didn't include any of the capital items that we had taken out to see if,
That's correct.
did we get?
Well, the fire department alert system, the police department vehicles, and the MDT communication terminals, those are all CIP items.
So we found out, Carrie, that we think we can get funded.
That's correct, yes. We're already getting quotes on those particular items.
Okay. So those first three were capital
That's correct.
items. All right, anybody have any questions on that spreadsheet that Sonia put together?
I did, but I
Don't keep it just.
well, you kept mine last week, and this is probably somewhere dismissed. Well, we're pretty sure that we will get the CARES Act money for these, Sonia.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we have those funds available.
On the other side, the police officer salaries, does that include all the benefits too?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, so here, we got a list here. On the budget discussions, the council discussion priority list, that was kind of in your agenda. That was kind of a continuation of where we had, I guess, stopped the other Saturday. The design build projects, I think we kind of talked about. Did you mention your idea that Saturday of how we would fund?
I thought we talked about just doing a general obligation bond when we get to that point, but I don't know that we're at that point.
No, but I think we were talking about funding the study that.
Oh, the study, I'm
So the
sorry.
study we just
Yeah.
recently approved is, with Wiley Wilson is not included in the budget. So how do we fund that, $141,000?
Yeah, I'd
Over
mentioned
the
taking
next
it
year.
out of the middle school.
Right.
Yes.
So did
Council
we-
directed me to restrict the rest of the middle school funding for those types of.
So we
that
did,
type of
I thought we
Yes.
did, and, okay, so we're.
Yes, sir,
we're
that's
all good
already-
on
You
that.
did get to that
Okay.
one.
Yes,
It's
sir.
around 347 or 8 or something.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so we had already kind of,
Yeah.
all right. All right, so Bart, did you want to talk about the lease or?
Yeah, and let me just mention to you, as most of you are aware, we own the building that the Chamber of Commerce occupies, and there was a long-standing lease that had been renewed several times, and frankly, the terms, once we looked at them, we determined that they really weren't favorable to us and really didn't make a lot of sense from the Chamber's perspective either, so that discussion was held about 3 years ago, and since that time, we've been kind of on a rolling month-to-month basis with the Chamber. And of course, we have a good working relationship with them. Wendy and I talk pretty regularly, but we would like to get that relationship defined in some manner, mainly because we own the building and we're insuring it and we have all the liability. So on their side, they have talked about, as part of their budget process for their next fiscal year, a willingness to pay rent. I don't know what that figure is, but until we reach that point, I would like to know if you would be willing to continue our month-to-month arrangement with some kind of documentation, at least in the form of a memorandum of understanding or something like that. So I guess what I would put before you is, are you willing to allow them to stay under the current arrangement if it's documented, with the notion that they will enter into a new lease within the next 6 to 12 months?
Now, I don't know what their budget year is. Do you? Is it
I don't.
calendar
It's a
or
calendar
fiscal?
year, it's a calendar year.
So it'd be
We've
January.
discussed this in the property committee meetings, well, I don't know what, yeah, the property committee meetings, several, 6, 8 months ago. And just bringing everybody up to date. And Gary went over there and gave us a rough estimate of what it would take to bring that building up to be safe, because there's some issues over there. And at my time, when I was in Mr. Black's position, we said put a roof on it, and when I rode by it one day, it needed a roof sooner rather than later, because it's our building. So we approved that to go ahead and do it, but I think we appropriated around $50,000 from unrestricted money to continue. Then it kind of dropped as far as doing a lease.
Yeah, I think we identified it. I don't know if did we ever, I don't think we ever really brought that list of improvements to council and approved the funding of it.
The intention was to include a reference to those in the lease, which
Right.
we haven't been able to
Haven't
negotiate.
been able to negotiate. So, I mean, we're willing to invest and do some improvements in their building, but we want to get some kind of rent from that. Of course, with them being in the middle of a fiscal year that they didn't plan for rent, I guess is kind of their dilemma that they're facing, and would like to just wait till the first of next year before they start paying rent, whatever we decide we want to negotiate a monthly rent payment from them.
And I had suggested at that time, just using my real estate figures, we spend $50,500 a month. And you can't lease it more than in 4 years?
I think 5 is the limit.
You have to have an RFP
You'd have to offer it for sale, correct?
to get our money back.
Take bids on what.
Or take bids on the lease, that's correct, yeah.
So it'd be 4 years or whatever.
And their interest is probably to do a 1-year lease initially and revisit that each year. Again, I don't think they have any plans to do anything other outside of that building, but they're also exploring other options.
Long-term's cheaper than short-term.
So I guess the direction Bart's kind of looking for, because since we don't have a lease on there, I guess could potentially be at some risk because we don't have a lease from an insurance standpoint, So I guess the direction is, do we get a 6-month lease to get it, or whatever, not,
Agreement or,
you know, a month-to-month lease to get us to December, and at the in that time, we've got to
Come up with a number.
come up with a number and negotiate a lease starting January 1st.
So whatever work we was doing, we had stopped any kind of work, is that correct?
Sorry.
we have at this point, because again, we
Yeah.
don't want to put a lot of money in building with the potential that something may happen to the building.
But on the flip side, you gotta make it safe,
Yeah.
not deteriorate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
That's
our,
what we will address the
Correct.
building.
right, and I think that's our piece to helping them out, you know, starting next year is that, hey, we're gonna do some improvements to your property, but
I would describe this from our viewpoint as a bureaucratic process, not an adversarial one.
Right.
So,
Did they mention a figure?
they have not, and that's what I would like to peel out of them.
Okay, a couple questions. One is, I think we should actually have the lease ready to be signed long before January 1st comes around. That way it's in place. And two, have you made any offers to them, say, hey, what about paying this much for rent?
We've made numerous offers to them, and those have lapsed without comment. Any lease that's going to be forthcoming, it's going to be up to us to draft it.
right, I think we're gonna have to draft it and give it to them, yeah, you know, and then see if they accept it. Okay.
Well, and by doing that, and I would recommend the property committee come up with a lease and a number to let them know, so they're not knowing at the end of the year it's gonna cost you whatever it's gonna cost you, so they can budget it.
Weren't they on our list for giving them a certain amount of money at one point?
But, yeah,
Used to be.
And that we were, basically, we were giving them free rent on it. Did I catch that wrong, or is that?
That money is for sponsorship. Quit giving them money just to give them.
Right. I understand that, that's why, I mean, it was kind of a,
I think Mr. Johansson's description of the prior relationship is correct.
right, that we're getting free rent and we're donating as a outside
which
agency.
we were getting hit 2 ways, and I think that was a little bit above and beyond the call of duty.
I could give you the history of that, but I don't know that you want it.
No, that's all right, it's early.
So you can get a memorandum of understanding for,
I say that, we'll get whatever we need to do to satisfy the insurance company. If we can get a lease, we'll bring that to you. I mean, that's certainly an option, but
Well,
that's the best option
They
for
probably need to know what we're talking about,
Correct.
so they can budget for it. So, I don't know, you could put a lease together for that period of time and then propose the lease and it continues effective that date. This is the
Right.
amount of rent it will be. This is our responsibility. That's your responsibility.
And it's your decision, but as a starting point, Mr. Rush has suggested $500 a month, so I can take that to them to see what they say about it. If you agree to that.
That's the deal.
That's pretty cheap rent for
Yeah.
for that building where it is.
And it could escalate, but I suggest you put it back on the property to put the.
But am I catching this right, with, if we put this thing on a lease basis, then after 5 years,
They have to renew
they have to renew it? Okay.
I expect we're going to have a very short-term lease. I expect it's going to be more along the line of 1 to 2 years regardless.
To me, that makes a difference in the amount of rent.
In previous discussions, they did note those terms as being desirable to them.
So we want to go with $500
So,
to at least negotiate
Say-
from there.
Or do you want us to go refer it back to property and come up with a lease to bring back to you all before we present to them, or how would you? how
I'd
would-
say what we got going here is fine.
Fine, all
We'll
right.
probably go-
500.
Say pretty much the same.
If it's a shorter lease, I agree with Steve.
Yeah.
It was a little higher on that rent. I mean, the 500 was based on a 5-year.
5-year lease, right?
I did 50 divided by, you know.
If they're only willing to go 2 years, that's
Then they can 50.
50 up, yeah.
We need to get our money back.
So are they looking somewhere else? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
Kind of like an employee that comes and says, I'd like a raise, and somebody else is asking, interested in me.
And I hate to admit it, I got commercial leases, but I'm not involved in that, but I've got one to go by.
2 years, 750?
Anything under 2 years and under,
Did you say though the first few months?
yeah, that's
Like kicking in January
That's
1?
kicking in January 1, so.
Unless we could get them to agree to it now, in which case I would bring that back to
Can't
you.
hurt to negotiate.
I know that in
Try it.
their discussions, they have budgeted money as of January 1st.
I'd say that's a starting point.
Okay.
See
If
see
they,
what
if
you
we're
can get.
going to sign a 5-year, we'll go up
And how many square feet is that?
I had it, I don't have it with me there.
Just one
It's
round.
not market
To me,
rate,
it's a
it's
big-
not market rate.
It's under.
That's not market rate.
Right, it's low.
Okay, now, what if they decide, okay, we're only gonna do it 1 year? Do you think they would be willing to do 1,000 a month? I know I'm kinda eyeballing it, but
That's why I said we put it back.
We'll see where that conversation goes.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to negotiate with ourselves in public.
Yeah, we gotta have a number with that.
And there's things in that lease that they need to be responsible for that they haven't
Correct.
done. And I, whatever.
And we'll get to those too, and as well as our obligation for improvements.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the details of the lease, maybe we would need the property committee to, that you get into.
That's why I was trying to put the devils in the details.
No, I think.
I can do that based on
I
consensus.
think at this point, I mean, but time's of the essence. I mean, we told them then pretty much we wanted to have this done kind of by the end of March, and
Yeah, I think
we're at the end of April, and we're not really getting anywhere, so I think it's, it's time to try to
I
work
mean,
on it.
standard commercial lease, the language, 2 years or whatever, whatever you guys can come up with.
Okay.
All right.
I can give you the history of that place after the meeting.
All right, next item on the list here is the Gateway signage Phase 2. So obviously, we've completed Phase 1, gotten the 2 entrance signs out there.
And I think we learned a lot in that process, and what we would like to do is implement Phase 2 in-house with our staff and our materials. Mainly, we're just looking for your direction as to how fancy or pretty you want it. So, but the signs themselves, one option is to do some poles or foundational work that might be brick or some other ornamental material versus putting signs on poles. Either of which we can do, we just are looking for that kind of direction. We also want to know if you're okay with us doing it in-house and relieving Hill Studios of that obligation.
How much money do we have left in the budget? Well, we don't have any.
We've got a little under $50,000.
I mean, back to when we started this project discussion, because some of you probably weren't on it, because it's been back to what, 17?
Been a while.
2017.
3 or 4 years ago.
I mean, I think the thought process was that the signs, the smaller signs, which are going to be in the 6, I guess it was about 6 entrance points, 43 south both ways, 221 both ways, and 122 both ways. We're going to look very similar to the entranceway signs. They're just going to be smaller. They were going to be brick. They were going to have the same logos, same kind. I mean, I know that's going to be more money, but that's kind of where I am. I mean, I think we've got something that looks really nice. I'm not sure we can do all that right now, and next year's budget, but I'd like to at least see what that's going to cost to keep the same consistent theme throughout the time. That's me. I mean, that's where we were when we first started talking about them. I know the cost has gotten more than what we may have were thinking about. We thought we might get it all kind of done closer to that number we've spent, but that's just me. I don't want us to stop halfway when we've done something that looks really nice, and I think we ought to extend that. And if that means it's gonna take a little bit longer time to do that, we have to figure that out in the future budgets, I'm willing to wait to, that's just me.
And we definitely need to see how much it's gonna cost before we really commit.
Sonia, I'm asking you because you kind of took this by the horns when we first started. I know council approved those 2 signs that we have up now, but I do not remember committing to the others. We just had a whole lot of ideas.
That's correct. You never gave staff directive on exactly what you wanted to see. Part of council wanted brick, part of council wanted poles. We never got a strict directive. You did approve the 2 large gateways, but you never approved a smaller version of the gateways or what you wanted it to look like.
Well, we did have those designed by Hill Studios. There was a design for the smaller sign.
The gateways were designed. Hill Studio was not going to design the smaller entrances until the first phase was complete. So we do not have pictures or specs of the secondary signs.
But we do own the images and
We
the,
do own the images of the sign, but so we could very well reduce what we have now into smaller signs. You guys did not direct us on one way or another, so.
I thought we had some samples, that's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I thought we,
You had samples in your RFP
The small signs.
of other signs that had been done, small scale, large scale, on all the RFPs you looked at. When you selected your company, they actually brought you the larger gateway picture signs. They didn't go into the phase 2 designing until you approved the phase 1 design. And once you approved the phase 1 design, there were project delays, not necessarily on them, it was different parties, which prevented them from stepping into designing the phase 2 part of it.
Do we have copies of what they presented from the gateway? Any of that?
Absolutely.
Of the 2, the smaller signs? Do we have any of that? I thought we had some.
We have larger signs, the specs and the larger signs.
Of the main sign?
Yes,
We don't
that's
have
correct.
any, we saw
They-
some.
I think those were concepts that
Those were
related to
concepts
brand.
in your RFP document. They weren't necessarily the sign you guys approved.
Right.
Does
Do
that
you
make
have
sense?
those concepts somewhere?
I have all of the copies of all of the RFPs.
Of the small signs, concepts of the small signs?
I have concepts of what they gave you in the RFP. It's not necessarily the sign that you're looking at on the gateway.
Can we see what you got?
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, basically, it's cutting it in down to
But I
3
do-
foot, 4 foot.
There was a debate whether to do poles or,
Yes, sir. And staff never received a directive one way or another.
but
So
we wanted to do the big ones first. And then
Yeah.
that's
It
correct.
was a budget year this year, the big ones, and another budget year.
That is correct.
That's
And
right.
there were delays in the project.
Due to the fact that we placed them in the limited access portion of VDOT's right of way. That was the main holdup process-wise.
And it was a
We
considerable.
won't run into that with the,
Yeah, I
Smaller
mean, it's in our right of way, so.
Right.
I mean,
Well, not these new ones, it'd be VDOT.
and one's in the town limits.
none of those are located within limited access corridors.
Right, we've already identified areas where these would go. Actually, Gary has done that for us, Gary and Wayne. The difference is if you decide on brick, then there is an issue with it has to be breakaway brick and in case somebody runs into it and things like that. So our decision on where to put it would be based on what type of sign you wanted to put in each area.
Which increases the expense too.
That is correct.
Well, can you find what we had? 'Cause
Yes, sir.
I mean, does anybody else have any comments?
So Tim, what you're talking about is a smaller version of what we currently have.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
the other
that was one of the debates back when It was, you know, a 3-foot or 4-foot
Right,
wide,
okay.
smaller brick monument type sign.
I mean, I would be interested in seeing a smaller, or maybe a concept of a smaller version to try to keep the same theme, but of course, it may be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I mean,
But, no, I'd be in favor of looking at that.
My
Just saying.
question would be, would you want the current vendor to design that, or how do you want to go about that process? Or do you want us to design it in-house? Because we already presented a version of that to town council. We already have materials from a previous sign project that was grant funded that we haven't used at all. So we have those materials that would save us money if we repurpose those materials. And we provided you with a design that married the current signage to your past Wayfinder signage so that it didn't look like you had two different signage systems in town. So we kind of blended the two, but we never got any feedback from council on those two. So we would need some directive on how you want them designed, who you would want to design them, and if you want to use the materials we already have, or if you want us to bid out new materials.
Can you just send us what you got?
Yeah,
Certainly.
and send us, because maybe I'm remembering wrong and that won't be the first time, but, I mean, I thought the original RFP was to design the big and the small signs. And I thought that's what we got from.
They gave you a conceptual design.
Uh-huh.
It looks nothing like what you have out on the 460 right now. So,
So we haven't paid for them to
it was
design phase
actually,
2 signs.
if you'll remember, it was actually in the curve of where you come into town. It was in that grassy area. It was square. It had a brick foundation. It was made. It had blowing grass underneath it. It was not the same sign that you currently have.
I agree with that, but it just, I mean, I
Let's
think,
just see what you got.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Be consistent with what we have. If you can be done in-house affordably, I'm all for it.
So what we have to go from there?
As far as you guys putting together a design or a concept drawing, whatever you want to call it, is that how difficult would that be?
We have some talented people that we have access to.
Well, so I'm looking at the guy who's going to be doing the work. Feel free to interject.
Hey, Abby, big up.
I'll learn my lesson on that stuff.
So,
In our other staff presentation that we sent to council, we actually went to an outside print shop, and they were able to the design that we presented them, they were able to create the sign using our current materials at a very nominal expense. But that
that's just
didn't include
metal
brick.
signs, right? That's just metal signs on.
That's
on-
metal sign with a reflective background so that when the lights hit it, it kind of looks like it's lit up. But we currently have breakaway poles from our previous grant money. We don't have brick. So if council chooses to go the way of brick, that's gonna change the schematics of it.
Again, can you get us everything?
Absolutely. I will send it to
And
you.
then we'll just maybe.
Streets
put that-
committee.
Talking to smaller signs, brick to me doesn't sound like it's, I mean, really, do we have to do that much? I mean, I would think a pole.
That would be a council decision. That would be
Breakaway
whatever
poles
you
would
want.
be, well, let's
That's
give
the
it a
debate we're
shot.
having, that's the debate we're gonna have to have,
Yeah,
because, I
let's
mean,
look
to
at it.
me, I mean, we've halfway done the project.
Yeah, let's
You know,
just
now,
find out what
we're gonna go back and just putting up some signs that, you know, don't really, that's me, I mean, you know,
What's Streets Committee
We
do?
don't need to spend the
But
full.
if y'all wanna put up, you know, metal signs on the pole, and
This is what
that's
they
what-
did last
But I think that's what we'll do.
But we need, it's
We
been a
need to
minute.
we need to look at both options, I think.
I will provide you with all the materials that I have access to from the beginning of the project.
And perhaps we'll work through the Streets Committee to review it. Just a suggestion. I mean, you can do what you want to.
And I suggest we do,
Yeah.
Hill Studios is out of it.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll just have a streets committee kind of review that and break and get everybody the information, and then we'll figure out a game plan. I mean, it doesn't,
Okay, is it a consensus that Hill Studios is out of it? Because we need to notify them if if.
I just would like somebody to make sure that they
You need a
are
motion?
absolutely sure that the contract and the RFP
It's your-
did not require them to design the phase 2 sign.
I don't think we're obligated.
We are not.
I'm not worried about us being obligated, I want to make sure they
Oh, no, no,
are obligated.
I don't think
do
we're
it for
obligated
us.
to continue the relationship at this point.
Either way, either party could walk away from the project.
Staff's recommendation is we sever that relationship.
I don't disagree.
We
And I'm
would
fine.
need directive from council on that, though, I mean, a unified directive from
Yeah.
council on
Well, then ask him.
Yeah, I mean, is there
Okay.
consensus?
I'm fine with
Yeah,
it.
we're good.
I'll tell you, a motion,
Motion, okay, all right, so do we have a motion that we,
I make a motion, we not continue with Hill Studio on the gateway signage.
Second.
roll call?
Mr. Johansson? Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, let's see here. Next item is Liberty Lake Park Master Plan.
I'd ask for this. Last year, we bought 2 parcels over there to add to the Liberty Lake footprint. And we bought and paid for the 5 acres and how many is the other? 7, 8? 10.
Right at 10.
Which is below the tennis courts. Now we need to get some engineering work done over there in order to determine how we want to do it. And I think the concept, the idea was to, up on the 5 acres, maybe do a parking lot, and maybe later on do a ball field or something, but we need to see some conceptual work. And that needs to be put in the budget so we can get that done. And I think we thought maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, that we would use unrestricted funds or however we need to do it. But we need a number.
So are we asking at this point just to do the engineering work on the 5-acre tract? Is that just,
I think we need to know where we're going before we get there.
well, I mean, and I brought it up that I thought we needed to figure out kind of a whole new master plan, what we want in the park, and incorporate that as part of that, but that's, you know, I mean, are there other things, I mean, we bought 2 tracts of land, you know.
Was it the consensus that that was going to be parking?
That's-
No.
Well, I think it was, that's how I sold it.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I mean, I don't think we need 5 acres of parking.
The immediate one was to get the parking, and it was going to be the concept of maybe doing ball fields on it, correct, Peter?
On the upper part,
Yeah.
next to the tennis court stuff, maybe putting in a soccer field or a football field or something, but whatever you do, you're gonna need more parking because you're at capacity at events right now. So anything you add's gotta have more parking.
Yeah.
You guys still clean off a little spot on the front of the road, didn't you?
We did. We cleaned that corner up because we wanted to get that cleaned up before the fireworks come so people could get the chairs and sit there or whatever, or sit up on the upper part and see the fireworks now that we took out all the trees and stuff.
It looks a lot better.
We're confident we have the numbers of the park, as far as people using that park, that if we put new fields in, this is going to be used and is needed.
I was out there last night and you could not find a parking place. There were all 3 fields were being used.
Baseball,
Baseball and softball.
And we're getting a lot of requests. I just took a thing today about some people want to do a benefit car show for cancer stuff, and the guy talked about if it works well, having food trucks, he wants to make it an annual event. We have the Battle of the Bands that's becoming an annual event, you know, and other stuff. On top of the recreation stuff, we have other events that take place.
I mean, to me, the priority is the parking lot, but we need a master plan, as Tim says, of what we're going to do with what we bought.
Yeah, to show just what we are going to do. Is the middle field still used as a football field also?
Yeah, that's a dual-purpose field, and that was kind of the idea on the upper lot, if we could take and move football, make it football soccer up there,
Okay,
to keep having to switch that field, because that's a lot of work, putting up the poles, and then you're marking it for football, and then you got to mark it for baseball, take the bases, put them up and down and stuff,
Right.
so.
And I think this is one of the topics for the town county
Okay.
as well, is to see if they'll maybe partner on some of
Right, right.
Anyway,
it.
So did you have an overlay last year or different things where you
Yeah.
done a map and an overlay of what it would look like if we,
Do you have a
Yeah.
number in mind, DW, for engineering?
We would have to put that out to RFP, get a scope of work and get a
Yeah.
proper price on it.
but do you have a, yeah. But do you have a ballpark?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I guess my
No
point
pun
is,
intended.
are we trying to add to the budget just the engineering this year? Are we trying to add the engineering and the construction of the parking lot?
I'm not just gonna do the engineering because you don't know what the construction's gonna be.
Right, so,
Tim's idea is right. To do restaurant.
so we're just looking to add an item for engineering.
An RFP for engineering,
Or the 5-acre tract only right now.
not other, you wanna do it all?
Whatever y'all want.
Whether we, I mean, right now, we don't even have any idea of what we're gonna do with the other 10-acre tract. I mean,
Well, that would, tell
Well,
us.
that's what we talked about with moving football up there or something, but you said you were gonna wait and talk to the county and see.
well, the football, is that on the 5-acre tract along with parking?
No,
So you're talking about taking a 5-acre tract and making that a parking lot only?
not all 5 acres of it, but a good portion of it would be.
What do you think, like 3?
Yeah.
The rest landscape?
Or you could add another shelter or,
Like for picnics and stuff?
yeah, they get used a lot. You could add another shelter, another playground or,
The 5 acres is up at the top.
that's across from the concession stand.
Across the middle field.
So you're talking about doing some kind of design concept for the bottom as at least a multi-purpose field.
While we're doing it, do it all.
Well, up on the road front where we already cleared off that corner is the property. That's nice and flat. You know, of course, it goes on back in the woods. There's an old barn and stuff back there. So that's already flat. That would be a good place for a multi-purpose field if you was gonna do that up there.
While we're doing it, just the engineering part.
Yeah.
You know, we're not committing to do anything, but at least we need a plan to know what we want to do.
I would say for the whole thing.
That's kind of my thinking. I mean, why not just get in there and do it? All of it.
All right?
Do we need to put a number now?
We don't know a number.
I think we put together a request for proposals for a master plan.
Could they, if a good football field, it could also be used for soccer.
Yes.
Yeah. So that could be a multi-purpose field in the middle and
Keep it for ball, keep that for ball and events. You know, what we run into now is by the time they end playing football,
There's no grade.
it's so much wear, they tear up the outfield and we have to overseed it to get it back in shape
Right.
for baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can take it out on restricted funds as we talk about the retreat.
Okay, I know this is a little down the line on our agenda, but DW, is there any way we could possibly have a dog park at Liberty Lake Park? Could that be a possibility?
If that's how y'all wish to do it.
Let's take care of this first.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is if we're gonna do a design, would you do that?
Would you throw that, yeah. Well, I mean, that was going back to my concept of what are you gonna do with, I mean, are there any other things? I mean, because don't we have some other undeveloped land out?
Well, on the other side, we have the walking trails, the nature trails. We, have a big chunk of land there, but they get well used for the nature walking.
Right.
A lot of people do walk them.
That's kind of what I was thinking over there. If that wasn't used, that could be
Yeah,
used for some part, or additional parking.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
that-
I don't have a number of how many people use it, but I do know
Yeah.
that a lot of, I mean, every day you go up there, somebody's there. And a lot of people already take their dogs and walk that trail and do that stuff there anyway.
Yeah, I've done it before.
so we hadn't cleared none of the timber off the land? on that?
No, we put out an RFP to get, for that, we only had one person respond.
Oops, you better get more than that.
That's the best thing to do.
All right, so I mean, is it consensus we're gonna get some design work, some engineering work for the 2 new parcels? Parking and whatever else they might consider on that upper track and a multi-purpose field on the lower track. That,
Yeah. We mean, parking to me is number one.
We already have, I think Bart can tell, we already have a couple people on contract for engineering stuff
Okay.
that we already
if
have.
we do that in-house, probably.
If that's your directive, we can accomplish that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a start point.
Okay.
think it's starting point.
Yeah.
So we can engage the firms we have under contract
Okay.
All right.
on the record.
All right, phase 2 boundary adjustment.
And of course, I guess you're all aware, effective July 1st, 2023, we will be expanding our boundaries primarily to serve the North Hills and Town and Country neighborhoods, but also some other areas. And really, that's going to be a major focus of next year's budget discussion. We want to make sure we're prepared to provide the appropriate level of service to our new citizens, but also we're aware in this year's budget of some impacts that we talked about a little bit at the retreat, particularly with solid waste. And mainly just wanted to bring that to your attention to be certainly thinking about next year's process with an eye towards absorbing those areas, but if there are any operational issues that we need to get ahead of as of July 1 of this year, we want to make sure we're aware of them.
Should we maybe try to put a timeline together on when we would like to, get all our points together, have them, so we're all speaking from the same page?
Good idea.
Yeah.
A timeline of, okay, after that, maybe we have some town hall meetings in some of these neighborhoods. I think we got to start this process more than just talking about money in next year's budget. I think that's just,
Great idea.
So if maybe y'all can work on, our,
I think we need some, you're spot on, Tim, I think we do need talking points, because I'm already getting comments of, yeah, I gotta pay 2 taxes, double tax. Well, but it's not more than that, so we need to be preaching from the same book,
right.
having the same talking points, be saying the same thing, not just, it's gonna be better than you think. Well,
So maybe, this is a thought, I don't know, maybe after we get through this budget process, let's have maybe a day, or work session, a strategic meeting of some type where we just focus in on this topic.
Well, the topic is, we've got to be able to sell it because it is by right, but we got to
Yeah.
tell them why it's a good idea.
Exactly, that's my point.
It will trigger an election where all 7 seats will be up.
That's good.
That's fine,
So, yeah, let's,
yeah.
and, maybe the next May, late May, June, well, we're already in the May, June timeframe, after we get through this budget, let's see if we can. That'll give y'all a little bit of time to think about it as staff, what we need to be thinking about.
And the county is very interested in speaking with us about it as well. So.
Good.
We can educate.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a dog park. I know we probably, so I think you were.
I've been approached several times recently, and I know that the county has also been approached. Mr. Hiss has indicated that he's interested in talking about this as a joint project, possibly near the health department where the ball fields are there, and that's been. And I think it would be a good thing for a community. There's a lot of dogs in this town that need to be socialized. I know some folks worry about who's going to take care of it, but I still think it's not that big of a problem. What I'd like to do is at least see it, let us look into it and find out what other communities are doing with this, and not just turn it off and say, no, we're not going to, it's who's going to take care of it seemed to be the last time where it stopped.
That land you're talking about, that was owned by the county?
Yeah, it's owned by the county.
They take care of it?
Well, and that's what, it could be something, a joint project that we've talked about before. We need, folks, we need to do more with the county. in projects. I'm sorry, but I think sometimes we.
I mean, that one's primed for a joint venture. It's right smack in the middle
Right,
of town. but
it's
It's
not
not ours.
it's in a good area, it's not that complicated.
What was the discussion last time, Bart? Would we, I mean, I know there was some talk about maybe we'd do some infrastructure, and they would,
Yeah, I'll speak to that. The prior county administrator and I had kind of a gentleman's agreement in conjunction with the school board, which at the time was the owner of the property, whereby the town would have contributed the cost of fencing, and that would have been the extent of our involvement. Now, that's been at least a couple of years ago, and at least one county administrator ago, but that was where we were then, and the three of us kind of agreed to that, but then it never went forward, so.
We'd be talking about the area by those rundown tennis courts too, right?
The area behind the health department building.
And all
yes.
that.
Yeah, behind the health department.
You got the baseball field.
So once upon a time, we, at the staff level, felt like we had a workable arrangement. My understanding, I think, was that the county was going to be in charge of operating it or finding an operator and maintaining it. But that was the previous deal that didn't happen.
I don't have a problem with the county doing it, if they operate it, but I was opposed to it because all these volunteer organizations said, yeah, I'll take care of it, but there was nothing committed, and I'll give you, Roanoke had the same problem up there with one of their dog parks. And nobody took care of it, and it ended up being a bunch of sick dogs because it wasn't kept clean. And I don't want that man or his staff having to clean up dog poop on somebody else's.
Well, that should be, I understand the Rotary runs them on Salem.
Talking about Wagner?
I know what happened, and that we don't need to.
Well, I understand, I'm concerned about that too, so I don't, but I still think it's a project we need to look at and determine whether or not we can or can't do it, and whether or not we have a problem with it.
because in essence, there's a dog park down there right now anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
they put them in the ball fields and let them run, and, I mean,
Once or twice.
yeah, but, I mean, it happens, I mean, about every, regular.
Well, I will say, we do a lot of camping, all the campgrounds have a dog park now. We go up to Misty Mountain at Crozet, and Crozet Park, they have a very nice one, it's probably a lot bigger than this room here. And they keep the sawdust wood chips in there and have shelters for the owners to sit and dogs run and all that. It's very clean. And in fact, they have one for the bigger and smaller dogs.
Yeah.
So, it can be run very well. And as Bruce said, there are a lot more dog owners around town and surrounding area to where it's worth looking into.
Most of the dog owners in this town are pretty respectable about picking up after their dog.
Correct.
You got a few, quite frankly, that have, I've had them dump the stuff in my front yard. I'm right on the thing, and, I walked out there one day and somebody, and, I finally said, are you gonna do something about picking that mess up? He didn't like it, but it was too bad.
Yeah.
It's just, some people are just irresponsible, and others are, it's just not. But I think, by and large, most of the dog owners in this town are pretty responsible.
So do you want
I'll
to,
admit that I'm not.
do you want Bart to approach Robert about this concept again and see?
Yeah, sure.
But I think we need to be clear what our involvement's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, our public works guys are
We could put the fence up maybe and supply the,
salt, mulch or something like that.
yeah, we're not gonna, you can't grass it, forget the grass.
No.
Yeah, and that's what the Rotary in Salem has done, they mulched it, and it's fine, they put up fencing, and they have basically a section for big dogs and a section for small dogs. And it works out fairly, and it's a good place for people to gather and do this. So
It's on their property, so they got all the liability. It's not taken care of, they're the ones who have to do it. I mean, I think we provide the county, we're county taxpayers, but look at Liberty Lake Park and how much that's used by the county.
And what do we get for that, D.W.? Very little, if anything.
We're talking about when we rent it out?
Yeah, well, we rent it out to the county rec?
No. We get, the only thing we get from the county is, when we have baseball, we get $10 for dragging and marking the field.
So we do provide a lot to the county of our resources. Right.
Let's see, we've been talking about this thing for several years now, started with Councilman Stanley's. And we started to talk to Bruce about it, and we have several places, and even me and Tim went to Liberty Lake Park one day and walked around, looked at different spots. But I agree with Steve, what's gonna happen, volunteers, you get someone to volunteer, I'm scared of somebody else gonna not have to clean it up, and we're gonna have to pay somebody to clean it up.
That's why Bob can talk to, yes, and they'll come up here.
Well, let's at least look into it and talk about it. And I'm not, I understand my fellow councilman's concerns, but I also know that there's a lot of folks that have dogs in this town that would really appreciate having a place that they can go and
I'm not against it, I wanna make sure
it's
that.
not that long. I agree.
I know a lot of dogs, if you politicking and you knock on doors, every 5 out of the 1 doors you knock on is a dog behind it.
Well, y'all know I'm a big dog owner, so I mean, it's just, everybody knows that. All right, Bruce.
Okay, a couple of things. One, yeah, we may be able to get a private organization to donate the materials for the fencing and help build the dog park. But our biggest concern really is with volunteers. Let's face it, volunteers are kind of unreliable. I mean, they may come out for a little bit, do what they need to do, but then after a while, volunteers, they get bored unless there's something in it for them. That's my concern right there. But I would be open to supporting a dog park. In fact, I'll even go on the record and say I'm a dog lover.
All right. Any other discussion on the dog park? Got it?
Bart's going to talk to Mr. Hess.
Right, yep. We'll go from there.
Thank you.
Need to take a break? All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Next thing we're going to talk about is the outside agency funding request. So, got some couple new requests. Looks like we got 3 requests from people that have submitted requests in the past. So I don't know if anybody who wants to start or where we need to start.
You know me, I don't support any outside agencies except for the Peak building up here, and that's only because they get a matching grant. These are town tax dollars, and I talked to Ken last year, and he's approached me again this year. Last year, we actually had an argument, somebody calmed me down because I think he thought he was entitled to it. But Ken's a good guy. I'm in the VA, but I don't support any new, I don't support any of this new stuff.
I guess my question is, the Bedford Farmers Market, what is up with that? Where's that coming from?
Well, I was just going to go to that.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe we should have started at the top, but that's the one that popped out to me.
yeah, so they've asked to fund a position, I believe, as a market manager, reading the request at $10 an hour for 40 hours a week for 52 weeks. That adds up to $20,000.
That's a big no.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
And yet they're charging vendors.
Who is currently in charge of that? Who do we have?
Does a good job. Ronnie Gross rents it, and Erica
Erica McFadden.
Eric McFadden.
runs it.
they have, I know they were in the process in reading the request of forming the 501c3. Does anybody know if they ever?
They did.
That process has been completed, okay. I think they are doing a good job at the farmer's market. I think it is starting to get some momentum again. I'd like to see us kind of maybe supported in some level, but paying for a full-time employee that's not an employee of the town, so I don't see how we could do that, but.
Well, they're operating, one weekend a month right now.
One day on Fridays,
They're doing-
March through October?
They was actually open all winter. They had winter markets.
Yeah, they did.
We put the plastic up for them. They had winter markets on Saturdays.
Was that, it's it's a little more than once a week, but it's still only, and then they're open on Fridays, and then always the first Saturday of the month, and then maybe some special markets throughout the
Here
year.
lately, they've been doing 3 Saturdays a month.
They're up to 3 Saturdays a month.
That's what they did here for the spring. They had some stuff.
So it is a little bit more than what I was.
But they do charge to vendors.
I don't know what their layout is on that.
So I have a question for you,
Yep.
David. Over the several years, has the market improved in the last year or so with the McFadden's running the market?
It has greatly improved when they took it over. They actually, if you go up there, they actually have the whole pavilion full, and now they've actually stretched out around the corner where they have tents in the parking lot, where they have a whole nother row going. They block off the parking spaces.
And then I got a thing from the Community Health Foundation this weekend. They actually gave them $3,000 last year.
Yeah,
Well, they've been getting that for years, Steve, because that was a part of the community. Correct me.
They use that for the EBT.
Yeah.
now.
Okay, but the point is, they're not,
They've been doing it for years, yeah, I understand.
and the county gives them money too, I just don't know how much.
I don't think on the EBT, they don't make it. What it allows them, they have a machine, so if somebody comes up there and wants to buy stuff, instead of purchasing it with money, that allows them to use the EBT.
I don't think the county gives any, they had that Virginia Grown grant at one time, they still get that Virginia, they don't get that Virginia Grown. And that was only funneled through the county.
It
It was
used to
not-
come here, and then we reverted it, went through the county.
Right.
Department of Agriculture.
But they don't get that grant anymore that you know, you're aware of, okay?
Anyway.
So, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, and on this page right here, that lists all their expenses, here's the thing. They're asking us for $20,000 a year, but yet they're giving, now, I have nothing against hospice, but if they're giving $3,000 a year towards them, plus this third donation, I'm not sure exactly what that is. But, you know,
Page number,
What page?
it's got 81% circled right here. It's in this book right here. It's in the funding request to the agency's book.
Right there. But that's,
Fifth or sixth page of the farmer's market.
so what he's saying is they're donating, they're taking and donating.
So my question to you, DW, how much involvement does the town help with the market during the market season?
Well, we know, you know, they on Friday and Saturday, we have a schedule, so we go up there the day before, make sure that, you know, the bathrooms are clean, we blow it off, the leaves, stuff cleaned up and everything. And then anything comes up, they call us, but that's our involvement. You know, we cut the grass, but we're gonna cut the grass over anyway.
Simple stuff.
Do they pay the $100 facility fee?
Yeah, they do.
They do. Is that per event? Okay. Anybody got any thoughts?
Well, let's start it out. Zero.
Zero.
I'll set $5.
zero.
It's zero.
Zero? I think zero is the number.
All right.
You let us spend other people's money.
Well, no, it's a good, you got to look at it, it is a good,
They're all good causes.
They're all good
Causes.
causes.
Everybody in their grandmother line out there for good causes.
yeah.
All right, Bedford Boys Tribute Center. We'll start with that one since that's a new one. Obviously, he's asking, at first, we thought it was a $15,000 one-time request, but is it, I read that right, Sonia, that is now probably a recurring request, right, not a one-time request? That, he did change that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm the landlord on the tribute center next door. He's filled that up. Yeah, I think he's talking about doing equipment stuff in here, but that's ready to go. He pays rent there.
But is he competing against D-Day, or, I mean, I'm not clear of what,
The difference, and I thought the same thing, DG. This is totally for the Bedford boys. The D-Day Memorial is for the entire invasion.
So it's just dedicated to the, yes.
Bedford.
Yeah.
Now, he does put soldiers that were in the war on the wall. And he does a remarkable job, but I'll leave it at that.
I gotta be consistent. I'm going zero. He's great and wonderful. I love it, but I just think as far as what our function is, I just don't see it fitting within our purview to do that.
The only thing I thought is he has gone through an expansion this year. I mean, do we do a one-time gift, not of $15,000, but of a certain amount to help with that expansion into that? I like one-time gifts more than helping pay fund their operating losses. I mean, I'm not here to fund your operating loss if you're gonna.
So how much are you talking about?
I mean, I was thinking $2,500.
I could go along with that.
But, you know, like I said, I know there's, some of you don't like at all, but
I get
that's
it.
just my philosophy is that, hey, I mean,
I have no way of determining who's more deserving than the other than, oh, I like that. I like the Bedford boys. Who doesn't, you know?
He's in the new I call it the old karate school, he's gotten the stairs to the auditorium at the middle school in there.
That's
Some benches, basketball goals, scoreboard, and all that. I mean, that was all donated. Everything he's got's been donated to him through families or whatever. Some of the flooring from the school. So I don't think there was any expense. I think he referred to the expense of opening that up. All he's got to pay is the rent and utilities. But I'm gonna stay for 0 on everything, once I say it.
Smart. And, you know, or we could even be open to saying maybe to show that, hey, we're supporting him, maybe $1,000.
So you mean by one time, you mean just this year, maybe a couple of years down the road, he can come back to us or something like that, or just this one time?
Not, like I said, I'm not,
What happened to our application? Remember?
well, I mean, I guess if they made it to
It
this
was after
point.
so many years, then you couldn't do it,
Right.
but we didn't do it this year.
Yeah, we did do that.
Yeah.
I thought it didn't get
I mean,
in.
these people have passed the application
Oh, yeah, I
process.
thought it didn't get
To
in.
get into the book, they passed
Yeah,
that.
they got in, they were vetted by staff.
This is the new, okay.
I
Because
think you
obviously-
extended the timeline.
It was, the timeline was adjusted
Okay.
slightly, but the application process and the criteria was applied to every application and then vetted by staff.
Okay.
Right. So, policy is started.
It's in effect, yes.
I mean, I don't know how the guy pays the bills. He relies on donations, but that's all I'll say. He survived. He says, I'm a big economic driver downtown. I said, you're not the only person down. I mean, we've had some heated debates on that. And he's talked to you.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, if you haven't been in there, I mean, it's a nice museum.
I did, it's great, I'm not
But,
saying anything
You
negative
know, I
about
mean,
him.
here's my thing is, I wanted to kind of take mine in conjunction with the town-county museum. The town-county museum, we funded for years and years and years. And that's a county facility. The county funds them at $60,000 a year.
60, 65.
You know, that, I mean,
Which means we do.
right,
We're county residents.
which means we help fund that. And, you know, they've gone and increased from 6 to 7,500. Yeah, we gave them 3,000 this year, and I thought that, you know,
Every one of these that the county is funding, we are too. Our taxes, we
Yep,
pay
right.
county taxes. So
Right.
I look at that too.
So, I mean, if you take that $6,000 to the museum and say, we're gonna give the museum 3 and the Bedford Boys Tribute 3, and it's 2 museum-type facilities in town, I mean, that's where, but that's,
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, take that 6,000, divide between the two.
then you're
I
treating
think
the
that
2
would be
museum
fair.
facilities exactly alike.
Yeah, that's what we gave them last year, right? 2,500, I mean, the,
Museum, we give them 3.
That's
Three.
That was half a year, because
We could have done it in half.
Right.
yeah, that's right.
I mean, they're well into their 5-year period, you know.
We see that, you were maybe on council then, it may have been before you, that town and the county supported the museum, and we gave our half to the museum, and the county took the total bill. Remember that?
Right, right. I'm not feeling real Christmassy here, but,
I never am when it comes to these folks.
I mean, quite honestly, I was pleasantly surprised to see not as many. I mean, I'm so used to seeing the plate loaded here, but there were 2 here that, I thought, well, it's 2, a few new ones, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that, gosh, some are not.
Well, I think a lot had to do with the application, we tightened that up.
Yes, yeah.
And I thought when we.
And some of it is we've done sponsorships too. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole point, I know when we done the application, when Steve came up with the application, it was supposed to have been done where we wouldn't be sitting here figuring all this out. It's pretty much the application speak for itself, we can make a decision and move forward.
I don't think that was,
Because we was talking about putting that stuff, I remember, that you've done the application, and then we was talking about hopefully next year we're gonna have to go through all of the, okay, use this like a bid thing, or like, hey, if you want to do 2,000 here, 3,000 here, and stuff like that. I thought it was all gonna go through economic development at one time, I thought.
I mean, I think as long as you have them, you're gonna have this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just,
but it got pretty bad when it was like an auction. And that's where it really disgusted me. I mean, we're having intelligent conversations about it tonight, and I'm glad to see that.
Well, and just to get through this impasse now, for the boys, Bedford Boys Center, we're talking about it one time.
Not necessarily, I mean, this can come,
You can come back
you
again.
can come back, but
Yeah, but we as a council are, for the most part, saying this is a one-time thing. Next year, see what?
But I'm gonna say this, if we're gonna do that with them two, we need to fund the market too, because you're taking them out of the equation. It's not fair to them if you're gonna give
Well,
them.
it would be fair to
I
anyone,
know.
if we want to do
a
that way.
one-time fee on the market too, I think that would be more fair on that too.
but there's nothing, the reason I'm arguing for the one-time fee on the tribute center is there's something that I've actually seen them expand that
But they-
yeah, they got a lot of donations, but they probably had to paint the place, they probably had to do some more, I don't know, but I'm not.
It's hard for me to argue with it, Tim, because him and I have, I'm a BIA and he's a BIA, and last year he kind of burned the bridge with me, so that's where I'm at with this.
Right.
Because he felt entitled, and that's where
And I think by telling him this is a one-time thing because you have done some expansion, I don't think that, I don't know. But anyway.
So you're saying 6 for the 2, all right, what else we got? Bauer Center, you got
So we're
45.
splitting
All right.
3 and 3, the museum, and, that's just I don't know. Let's go around and see if that's consensus. I'm not trying to,
Oh, well, I looked at total cost too.
Yeah.
all right, sorry,
The Bauer Center, that 9 is actually 45.
4,500, because 4,500 comes from the state.
But is it also under this, or they are in the other part, economic?
No, they're here.
No, they're here. That's the pink building. You're on the board.
I understand that. What I'm trying to say, I thought they was moved over there with the Virginia Court line.
No, there's no sponsorship there.
No.
No, they-
This is a straight-up grant.
Okay.
All right, so then the only one left is the Warden Gardens.
0.
Gotta grow some flowers, Steve.
Petunia patch.
That's the town property, right?
It is.
So if they don't do it, who's gonna do it?
Yeah, they do a pretty good job.
That's my question. If they don't do it, if something happens to them, who's gonna do it?
We're planting grass and you mow it.
Well, keep
That's
in
probably
mind-
gonna cost more than $6,000 a year.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job.
What's in this picture?
And that's publicly seen by a lot of folks.
So we gave them 6 last year, right?
We gave
Yeah.
3 last year.
Well, we gave
Oh,
them
that's
3
right.
last
I
year.
keep forgetting
Yeah,
I'm looking
but-
at my last year's notes, and we cut all that in half, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of long-term. They're the ones that's gonna probably run up at some point.
Well, keep in line with the rest, 3,000. I'm just starting out the conversation. What about it? But it'll cost more than 6 to keep it up. But let's not go
if you
there.
guys all come to numbers, let's build it again.
All right, well, that's 10,000, 13,500.
So where we at?
13,500.
So you got 9, you got
We got-
9?
I actually got 6,000 for the 2 museums, $4,500 because it's a match on the pink building.
All right, 10.5, and then how much?
3,000 for the Petunia patch. That's what I've always called it. He's made your vest so mad.
You're trying to make Fred mad. I don't think,
We
I don't
stick with-
think you could take care of that mess
No,
over
no,
there.
no.
Well,
No, no,
we
stuff
only
comes,
have,
We don't have
45, okay.
they match the other, they
when
get
stuff comes up over there, we currently pay for
45,
stuff.
6, 3, and then,
We
I
do.
don't know where everybody else is.
I know you did some tree work.
Yeah, that was close to $5,000.
Tim, the museum, were you saying 6 combined for
I was saying 3 for the museum, 3 for the tribute center.
the
Yeah.
Bedford Boys?
And then, okay, 3 for the water, is that what you were saying?
That's what Steve's saying.
Oh,
You know, it's unusual for me to say that.
3K, 3K,
Take it while you
well, they get on
can.
video, won't it?
3K,
So,
so that's,
and nothing for the farmer's market is, or do we want to fund
No.
nothing?
No.
No. Okay.
We're creating a
369,
monster.
13.5,
13.5 is what I have.
so
We knocked off, there you go, knocked off $44,000.
But we already put money in the economic thing for that one too. So-
What's it on the tax rate?
What economic thing you
I
talking
thought
about,
you were talking
Stacy?
about, I'm sorry, forgive me. I thought we had put, were we paying the fees or were we paying like a donation through the economic part?
The marketing part.
We are sponsors of the D-Day Memorial Foundation and Central Virginia Business Coalition, and also one time for the Chamber of Commerce. In return for that, we get advertising.
Right.
separate thing.
Separate things. Think of it, these are grants,
Right.
those are sponsorships.
Right, and that's funded under the marketing.
Yeah.
of
Okay.
D-
I was trying to
right.
clarify that, I'm sorry.
So
But we do get services in return.
Bet that's on the banner.
Yeah.
And hopefully D-Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments?
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes.
Yes. Do we have a motion to?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Second.
Well, we gotta make a motion. It'll be
I'll
specific.
verbalize.
Yeah, you
I'll
gotta
verbalize
make
it.
Steve,
I think throw it
You might throw a curveball at you.
You All right, we're gonna make a motion, we, give $3,000 to the Tribute Center, $3,000 to the museum, $4,500 as part of the grant for the, Bauer Center, and $3,000
That's
for
the-
the, flowers.
That's still a $9,000 expenditure.
Okay,
It's a net 4,500, but you need to keep it at 9.
gotcha. I'm looking at the number though.
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
Now you can say,
Okay, second.
all right.
you know.
Roll call?
Mr. Rush?
Ah,
Mr. Schoen?
aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson? Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, two more things we need to do. We want to talk a little bit about the solid waste rate scenarios that Sonia had worked up for us. You know, as part of the budget discussion, we were talking about looking at maybe looking at solid waste rate. Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Sonia, do you want, I mean, the scenario is basically $1 increase, $2, $3, $4, $5 increases.
That is correct, and it shows your total annual residential fee increase per dollar increase.
So that's just,
It's just residential, it
Right.
does not factor in commercial.
so that's the town and the county?
And the residential county, yes, sir.
So what's the difference, RCO1 and RCO1-2?
I think the two may be that they get a second cart, you charge
Oh, is
$3
that- okay.
per cart.
So is that what the two means?
So
There's two,
the
okay, all right.
RCO1-2 is a $23 charge.
We learned something tonight. Yeah, good.
Thank you, I tried.
All right, so basically, then just to hit the highlights, the $1 raises about $28,452.
That's correct.
$2 raises 56,904. 3, 85,000.
356.
Right, 4, 113,808, and 5, 142,260. And just to remind everybody, we were using about $270,000 from our prior year fund balances, which was not solid waste fund balances, it was general fund balances. Well, actually, it was coming out of that restricted money, probably.
Yeah, I balanced it on the solid waste restricted funds. It's in a general fund bank account because solid waste doesn't have their own bank account,
Right.
but it's restricted for solid waste actions and
But
operations.
that just goes to show, I mean, we're basically a shortfall of $270,000 a year based on our current rates.
Yep. And we need to make them their own enterprise, just like the election.
We would be one of very few municipalities that would operate it as a true enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, most municipalities do have to subsidize
Supplement.
their solid waste with general fund tax dollars, but we're trying not
Not to do that.
to have to do that, trying to make it a user fee, and the user fee pays for the expenses.
I will say, moving the charges that we had for the old landfill into the solid waste, we're not sure of what those charges will be once they're combined with the charges that we have for the new landfill. So there may be some charges that are less or more associated with both of those landfills being together, or we may be able to use some of the funds for both of those. When they come out and do an inspection, they may not charge us for two different things. So there may be a little bit of a fluctuation, variance in those.
We have two accounts we're talking about. We have one that's like a perpetual fund.
That is for the cemeteries.
No, for the closing of the landfill, that would take care of the landfill for the next 20 years.
Post-closure.
Yeah, it's a
Post-closure.
post-closure fund, yes.
And we're not getting into that, except to pay for the closing of the landfill.
Well, we actually have a CD that's set aside that we're not cashing out, and that will be for 30 years down the road closure. We also have some restricted funds that we are currently using for landfill, our current landfill closure, but we will not expend all of those. So those funds will be solid waste related for however council chooses to use them.
That's the 830, looking at last month's financial statement.
Correct.
So
Now
that's
there,
the 837,000, and then we have this CD.
it's a 500 and, I want to say 40,000.
Yeah, 514 at the end of
14.
March. So we got that, and then, so we got 1.3 million.
Correct. Now, there are some bills that that we're still waiting on the invoices for, so that 800,000 is going to reduce some, but we're supposed to get our final invoice this month, and I'll do the transfer to reimburse general fund check writing on that, and after that, that money is free and clear for however council wants to use it.
Yeah, but I mean, if we use it to make up this hole, I mean, basically 5 years, that money's gone.
Yeah.
You know, with no increase in solid waste fees. I mean,
DEQ's gonna get tougher and tougher and tougher, and they gonna change the rules, so you gotta be prepared for those rule changes on this post-closure stuff.
yeah. Are we ever getting close to getting the old landfill?
You'll never get out of the landfill business, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll never get out of that one.
So we need to leave that alone as much as we can. And future council can spend it if they want, but not.
Well, even, I mean, like I said, even going to raising it $5, you're still, I mean, you're only cutting that 270 in half. I mean, you're still having to go in there. So, I mean, that might get us to slow it down and get us to where we get to phase 2 in a couple of years, where we get some new class.
So what are y'all recommending as far as an increase? I mean, I see the different numbers, but what do we?
I make a motion, we increase the solid waste rate $20 to $25 a month.
Well, or $5 across.
Yeah, $25.
Well, $5
one.
$5 across residential. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I mean, there's obviously been some discussion about do we do it incrementally? I mean, if we're gonna take the hit,
Take the hit one.
take the hit one
Are we
time.
ready for discussion?
Yeah.
How does this, would that compare us to other localities, similar localities, like rates-wise? Is that too hard to figure out, or?
Actually, I will tell you that in terms of straight-up rates, we are already high, but I'll go back to my previous comment. I'm not really aware of anybody else who runs their solid waste operation as an enterprise fund. So on an out-of-pocket basis, I think we are very competitive, and we provide a very high level of service. But it would be very easy for someone to compare us to, say, Lynchburg, and I think their fee is $10.
$10 a month.
But you also have to buy a decal, and you have to buy bags, and they do cover some of their costs in the general fund. And a couple of years ago, I calculated that for a former resident and found that we were actually lower on an out-of-pocket
That's
basis.
what I was wondering, is it too hard to calculate, just because other fees and figuring it
It
out?
can be done, but on a straight-up fee basis, we're going to be high, but on an out-of-pocket basis, I think we could prove that we're competitive. We can provide that analysis to you, but we
And remember, the reason we talked about this was the pickups that we're having to do also.
our costs are increasing steadily, yes.
The brush.
I was saying we could burn it.
And the spring and fall cleanup.
I'll offer to.
I mean,
I think
it's
the
more.
pickup's a luxury.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a luxury, but it's a service that I think our citizens have come to expect and would be, maybe I'm reading wrong, but I think they'd be more disappointed if we got rid of that service than paying $5 more a
I
month.
think we see a lot of brush along the streets just sitting there. So, Bart, with the $5 increase, would we still be competitive, or is that what you're?
I think we would be, but I don't have the numbers in front of me to support that.
Okay, now, this covers trash pickup. This also covers if somebody wants to take their own garbage to the landfill as well.
We pay for that as county taxpayers. It's a general fund operation in the county.
The county landfill is free. If it's over 500 pounds.
Did you come to the town?
It's not free, we pay taxes for it.
You come to the
Nothing's
town,
free.
you get 500 pounds a month, and if you go over the 500 pounds, then.
In here.
In town. But you can come to the town and use 500 pounds, and then you can go to the county and get 1,000. So essentially, you get 1,500 between two
You
locations.
go to the county dumpsters that are right around the side of town and don't cost you anything.
Right, if you don't have bulk stuff.
Right.
But I think we created a monster by picking up this brush.
Of course, you have to invest every day to keep up with it.
Yeah, we pick up brush every day.
And then we have to pay somebody to grind it.
Yes.
So essentially $5 a month more because we have brush.
Well, that's accumulation of, right?
I mean, if you think,
That and
People want it.
that and the landfill closure cost. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna have to pay for that landfill monitoring one way or the other. You're gonna have to pay through taxes or through fees.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
I mean,
yeah,
so-
I just try to be mindful of the people that are on a fixed income, and we're all differently situated here. It's, I don't care, $5, but lots of people might,
Any other discussion? All right. So we have a motion second to raise the solid waste fee to $5 on the residential class customers. All right.
Mr. Schoen,
Aye.
Mr. Stanley,
Aye.
Mr. Haley,
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick,
Aye.
Mr. Johansson,
Aye.
Mr. Rush,
Aye.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, the last thing, we're gonna go into, closed session. Make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia of 1950 as amended to discuss personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
No, yeah.
Close that side.
Yeah, it's a 3-minute walk.
All right. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Bedford hereby certifies that one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the council.
Second.
All right, Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen? Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
We're adjourned.
All right.